I'm going to explode if I get interrupted one more time while I'm trying to record this. So I just wanted to talk a bit about Vaalmonica today. Not really going super in depth on anything, just some thoughts and considerations I've had as we've gotten different reveals. So I put Celta off to the side because if you don't know, the way that deck build pack reveals work is they'll show us a bunch of cards all at once for one of the themes, but they'll hold off one card for later, usually for closer to the release date, right? And in the case of Vaalmonica, we saw all of these. So just from these, I actually thought that the strategy had the potential to be pretty decent, and I'll just explain why. I've had people tell me that I tend to be a little too positive when it comes to my outlook on themes and archetypes and stuff like that. But it's like, on one hand, we have to acknowledge that, like, nothing exists in a vacuum, right? But it's also important to see what each deck does. So baseline, the Agatha Cocological Voice, the field spell here, searches out your Vaalmonica monsters, and it has the ability to take control of one of your opponent's monsters. It does target once one of your scales hits its third resonance counter. So, hey, that is not only a potential disruption if you go first, it's a board breaking tool if you go second. Now, how do you gain your resonance counters? Demono gains a resonance counter whenever you take damage while a fairy monster is in your other scale. Angelo gains a resonance counter when you gain life points while a fiend monster is in your other scale. It's not like a super big consideration because I don't think I came across anything that made this matter. But in the future, if there are good fairy or fiend pendulum monsters, hey, we have alternative things we could put into our scales. Now, on top of that, each of them does have another scale effect. Angelo has a like pseudo IP Masquerena effect where if your opponent attempts to attack you, you can summon one of your Vaalmonica Link monsters. Or, well, you can perform a Link summon for one of your Vaalmonica Link monsters. For Demono, on the other hand, she has a Burden of the Mighty effect that scales based on the number of resonance counters you control. So the more resonance counters you control, the lower your opponent's attack points go. It's 100 attack per resonance counter. Both of them have an effect that allow them to copy a Vaalmonica normal spell or trap effect in your graveyard. On the turn that they are normal summoned, they will banish the card for this effect. So of course, Demono copies the damage dealing effects and Angelo copies the life point gain effects. Not a whole lot to say about Versar and Intanar. Like, they're okay. Versar can just find you something off the top or dump something. Being able to dump, just having an in-theme Foolish Burial Goods is kind of nice. But Intanar really depends. Intanar can be really, really good depending on the hand or the build, really. There are some builds that I've used 3 of it, but I think generally just the 1 copy is probably enough. Follow Rhythm and Chosen Melody are both really nice cards. Follow Rhythm is kind of crazy. If you control a Vaalmonica Link monster, you can activate both of the effects on these traps. In the case of Followed Rhythm, it can pop a card and bounce a card. It's also really important to note, like, it can pop something on either side of the field, or a spell or trap on either side of the field, rather. And it can return a monster from the field to the hand. So, like, yeah, this can be used offensively or defensively, so do bear that in mind. Chosen Melody prevents your Vaalmonica monsters from being targeted. I need to double check rulings regarding this because both of these cards actually do have a condition that you, like, need to control a Vaalmonica monster to activate them, but they count your scales. So I'm under the assumption currently that this also protects your scales. But it also has a monster effect negation, so it's pretty good. But yeah, Follow Rhythm, I really, really like it. There's so many decks that rely on using multiple spells, and some of them are continuous spells and or field spells. So being able to shut off like one option can be really, really good. Like, even playing against Fire King in Fire King Snake Eye, being able to pop the continuous spell with this came up a lot. Then the Link monsters. So they need you to control 3 resonance counters at least on the relevant pendulum scale. So Zibifera needs 3 on Demono, Duralum needs 3 on Angelo. Zephyra is also just nice. It it has a non once per turn protection effect. Like, as long as you can pay 3 resonance counters, you can repeatedly protect cards on your side of the field from being destroyed. And funny thing about it is, if we can focus here, it protects against both battle and card effect, right? But yeah, the quick effect is like the Demono and Angelo normal summon / special summon effect on summon effect. Well, it's not even an on summon effect. The way they work is you summon them and they gain the ability to use the copy effect as an ignition. But yeah, Zephyra can just at any point in the opponent's turn, quick effect, copy one of your Vaalmonica normal spells or traps that is in your graveyard or banished. And this includes the ability to activate both of the effects of the traps if you control a link, so that's cool. Duraloom, on the other hand, it can go for a game because it has the ability to pay 3 resonance counters to attack 3 times that turn, which does pair well with Demono because it can be a way to break boards. But on top of that, when you summon it, it actually can target a number of your opponent's monsters up to the number of resonance counters that you have and destroy them. So hypothetically, let's say your opponent has U-Linked you and has a full main monster zone, but they also have like one of the links pointing to your main monster zone. If you can summon this while you have 7 resonance counters out, you could actually target all of those, assuming they could be targeted, and potentially pop them. This card is really, really nice. So like at a baseline, I hope it like makes sense why I thought this theme could be really, really good. You had a decent going first setup just because Followed Rhythm, being able to pop a spell or trap and then bounce a monster is like really, really strong. Being able to get rid of a normal summon or like something later in the combo is kind of crazy. And then on top of that, Duraloom, either as a defensive tag-in or as a way to break boards, is also really, really decent. Now, of course, the downside was you didn't really have a whole lot that this would synergize with. One of the main things you could look at would be the old Clown Blade package. Damage Juggler being the better opener, because Damage Juggler, you can pitch it to set your scales. Did I talk about that? Maybe I didn't. But yeah, both of the Vaalmonica Pendulums have an effect that they can discard a card to place itself and the other card from deck in your scales. This gets around Anti-Spell Fragrance, which it matters a little less in regards to Anti-Spell, because Anti-Spell is at 1, but Diabolese is an Anti-Spell on legs. But yeah, so from there you could, banish this, search out either Trick Clown or Flame Eater, and you could Pendulum summon Trick Clown, right? And that would matter because you could link it off for Artemis. It'll revive itself, right? You pay 1,000, so you gain a counter, and then from there you could actually do some Sky Striker stuff. Unfortunately, though, we don't have Camellia in the TCG, so we couldn't actually access the Sky Striker line, and that's actually one reason I hadn't really talked about Vaalmonica. Like, I think one of the better ways to run the deck, one of the more consistent higher floor variants, just wasn't possible. You couldn't consistently get a Sky Striker spell into the grave. You only had to engage. Like, there was some stuff you could do, but you were running at a deficit in comparison to other packages and whatnot, or engines, I guess. Like, Runic had a much better time. Board Breaker, Sky Striker just being run as a package elsewhere is like, it was much easier to accomplish, right? Because you could go into Azalea, but the problem with that is just that, like, she didn't really get you access to a striker spell, so going into Kagari wasn't great. You'd have to go into like Shizuku or something. Aside from that, these were other considerations. Lina and Dark, I think, go without saying. Exceed the Pendulum is just really nice to have. It was very overlooked, I think, but very nice to have. Selene, easy to get a bunch of counters on, but didn't have the most value immediately. It did have, some value with this, but that was honestly about it. It's more worthwhile now, though, thanks to where are you, Celetris, But yeah, another thing is you might want to consider a area, since she's water. Not a whole lot to say here. Rafflesia is just because some of the different variants that I tried out did run into the issue where they crossed the Nibiru threshold. So just having this as a way to deal with Nibiru by sending where did you go? Well, you'd send the Gravedigger Trap Hole. It would be really, really useful. Oh, here it is. But yeah. You also could tech in Terrifying Trap Hole Nightmare or Floodgate Trap Hole. Honestly, Rafflesia is a really nice utility piece. It's just, if you run this, you do have to, like, run bricks in the deck. I feel like these are, like, less bad, generally speaking, but still, like, this is not something you want to see in your opener because of this. But the nice side, the good aspect is... Actually, where did I put Celta? The good aspect is Celta can put it back. Oh, Celta's literally sitting on my leg. But yeah, I forgot. I took this off because I was trying to discuss the initial wave reveals. Now, when Celta got added, Celta definitely made the strategy overall more cohesive. It helped a lot because, again, I was doing playtesting as we got reveals. And the addition of Celta made me more comfortable with running the Clown Blade package, but I was trying to find if there was something else I could go for because I was very inclined to make rank 4s with that, and I just didn't feel that a lot of the rank 4s were really worth it. Rafflesia was an exception, but instead, we'll talk about these in a moment. Instead, I ran those two because I just felt that they were good tech choices, but I went for a live twin package. And a no treat isn't often run, but I felt the need to do so because I was capping out on Kissakill and Leela alike. So there were just situations where I needed to search out an extender that was not Frost because my opponent tried to like Effect Veiler or Imperm this. So that's what that was about. We got 3 secret passwords. You could probably cut this down to 1, and I was running 1 Evil Twins, Kissakill, and Leela. This I was running because it was just like a nice extra like removal. But the other thing is sometimes actually playing it came up, which is kind of goofy to think about. But there were some towers stuff that I could not affect with Demono because some of them were just completely unaffected rather than being unaffected by activated effects. So being able to hit 4400 with this was really, really good, or summoning access code was good. It just, like, which one I could do would depend on the situation, basically. These are just really nice. They're send targets. You could summon them. You can link them off. They have good effects in the grave. That's all about it. They were just generic options that I had the space to slot in. So, you know. But yeah, then with the latest wave of support, we have, of course, Invitar, Disharmonia, and Slitrus. So I see some people run this at 2. I kind of get that, but I would rather run it at 3 because it's something that if you open it, it makes it so much easier. Like, it not only recovers your pieces, right? But you get 2 resonance counters off of this. So, like, you end up in a really, really good spot, right? Like, if you open these 2, you can just search this off of Slitrus and you're where you need to be, right? You'll link this off, you'll summon Zubafera, it'll go back to hand. That's that. Or, you know, if you're going second, you have other stuff in your hand to potentially break boards with, right? Search this and you go into your Dueloom play. This is also really, really nice because it helps you play around Droll, which was one concern I had. The concern was abated a little bit because even though I think like people were definitely running Droll in the side at least, a lot of the initial considerations I witnessed from people was that they were going to be running Droll. So I'll have to try to think about how best to address that going forward. But yeah, like these cards are just good. They are very, very nice to have. If anything, like in this particular lineup, you'd probably cut down Versar to 1 or 2 copies and just cap out on both of these, at least in my opinion. But we'll get into that more with the deck building discussion. But yeah, like this is just really, really nice also because she makes Intanar much better. You have an in-theme level 4 to be running. Aside from that, I'm not even sure what to discuss first. So there were some TCG exclusives in Legacy of Destruction that I think are worth considering. I don't have the field spell here, but Krishnerd Witch searches multi-universe, and multi-universe can potentially be really nice because you can only activate the Agatha Cocological Voice once per turn, but multi-universe actually places the card. So if your opponent pops it and you really need it to get the board breaking portion of the effect, right, you can put that into the field zone, pop it to place that card back, and then trigger, right? And Krishnerd is just like the support card that goes with it, so she's potentially worth considering. Aside from that, I messed around with this a little bit in playtesting, but I don't know. I don't know if it's all that good, really. It just says if a player gains life point, except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. So either you or your opponent. And then once per turn, if a player gains life point while this card is in the monster zone, except during the damage step, you can make one player gain life points, 1,000 life points. So it helps accelerate you to the Duraloom plays. I don't know if it's like ever going to be defensible to run this though. The card I actually was interested in though is Jungle Dweller. So Jungle Dweller, we can just read here. Also a TCG exclusive, but it cannot be normal summon a set. It must be summoned by card effect, and it can do so by banishing a light or dark monster from your graveyard. But also, while there are 2 cards in the field zones, your opponent cannot target this card with effects. The nice portion of this though, if this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, so this can be by battle, it doesn't have to be by effect, you can crash this. You can shuffle up to 2 of your field spells from your graveyard or banishment into the deck. Then you can destroy up to that many cards your opponent controls. It is a non-targeting destruction generic. I don't know how good this card is going to be, but I do think it's worthwhile considering these new field spell oriented things. And it actually has me a little bit more excited looking forward to the Light Duelist pack that I believe is still being revealed currently, because there is the potential that there will be like Ancient Fairy Dragon related cards there. And I'm assuming if they give Ancient Fairy Dragon an upgrade and some related support, like it doesn't actually have an archetype, so I'm assuming there will be some kind of like field spell focus and field spell generics. That could potentially be pretty useful here, but I mean, even at baseline, it's like what, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and like at the slimmest, that's 4 more cards, that's 25, right? So you can try cutting down the like number of engine pieces here, but you know, hopefully if we're trending in towards a format where we don't need hand traps as much, this will be fine. But also, like, you do a lot within the confines of your engines, so I feel like it's fine if you're running 24, 25 engine pieces here. It's kind of like purely in a way. But yeah, again, we'll just have to see. I've been, you know, playtesting with it. I've had a decent amount of success, but I've also like built 15 different variants of this. So, you know, that's pretty much all I just wanted to say today. Like, I think as we've gotten more cards, we've had a lot of opportunities presented to us. And I mean, even with the new Link monster, the Link 2 that got revealed for Infinite Forbidden, that one is kind of funny. So I misread it at first. I believe the way the card is worded, as long as you have your scales out, it can attack like up to 3 times. And then it also has summon negate and a like pseudo towers effect. It becomes unaffected by card effects aside from Vaalmonica effects while you have 6 or more resonance counters, which honestly, like if you're not running an outside package like Live Twin, I wouldn't say getting 6 is hard, but maintaining 6 or more is like a little difficult because the field spell does incentivize you to spend some. But I guess that's one other thing. A real cool thing about like paying your costs with the link monsters for like the sake of triggering this, right? If you pay 3 and let's say, I don't know, you have both of them out, right? Do I have a die? I don't have one that's close enough to me. But let's say that you have 4 here and 5 here, right? You could pay 1 from here and 2 from here. Then you're at 3 and 3. You're still at 6. But the other thing you could do is pay 1 from here, so this is at 4, and pay 2 here, so this is at 2, right? So this goes to 3, and then you're good. But that balance also kept you with 6. So it just depends. Like, you can potentially keep that new link monster safe. But yeah, it just really depends. And I think it's also nice because if you break boards with Duralume and then you still need to do something afterwards, you go into the link 2, you sit on that, and then you just enter the grind game with your opponent. And this deck actually does have a decent grind game because of how it works inherently. So hopefully, you know, I'll be able to do something with this deck in the future. We'll see what happens though.